Hello everyone, we're back at it again with our Women in Art. Today with Harriet Powers, who was a quilter from 1837 to 1910. In 1837, Harriet Powers was born into slavery near Athens, Georgia. Along with many brutal practices of slavery, teaching slaves to read was against the law. But Harriet, like many other women before her, used her artistry to create storytelling quilts that helped share an oral story. Her quilts depicted important events, biblical stories, and astronomical events. After the Civil War, in 1865, slavery was made illegal by the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. At the age of 28, Harriet Powers was finally free, and she and her family managed to own some land and a home. In 1886, Harriet displayed her now famous Bible quilt at the Cotton Fair in Athens, Georgia. The quilt captured the eye of a white art teacher, Jenny Smith, who offered to purchase it on the spot for $10, which would be more than $240 today. Harriet could not bear to part with it, her precious quilt, and declined to sell it. In 1865 and 1866, the Black Codes were enacted in the South to strip away the rights of the newly freed slaves and to ensure that plantations continued to have nearly free labor. The South was struggling economically after war. Times became hard for Harriet and her family, and they had to sell off parts of their land. For 4 years after the Cotton Fair in Georgia, and after discussing it with her family, Harriet decided to sell her precious Bible quilt. She sold it to Jenny Smith for $5, but made sure that Jenny wrote down a description of the story description of the story in each square told, so that her quilt meaning would remain the same. This sale of her work helped Harriet's family keep their home. Little is known about Harriet's quilting career, but there is record of her being hired to create several more quilts. She died in 1910 at the age of 72. Today, 2 of her quilts still survive in the collections of major museums. Harriet Powers did not obtain wealth or fame with her artwork during her lifetime, but the beauty of her quilts has allowed them to be endured for over 130 years. Her work shares an aspect of the private lives, hopes, dreams, and strength of the people who survived slavery and gives visibility to African American Southern life during the Reconstruction era. So let's go over here. I created narrative applique quilts about Bible stories and legends that were important to freed slaves. Her quilts are in the collections of the Smithsonian and the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. It looks like this is a quote from Jenny Smith and a letter about seeing Harriet Powers' quilt. I have spent my whole life in the South, and I'm perfectly familiar with 30 patterns of quilts. But I have never seen an original design and never a willing creature to portray a patchwork until the year 1886, when there was held in Athens, Georgia, a cotton fair. And then we got sold her first quilt at age 53. Her quilt shows influences from West Africa designs. Harriet's Bible quilt is both hand stitch and machine stitch, so she did have a machine apparently. Her Bible quilt depicted scenes such as Jonah and the whale, Cain and Abel, Jacob ladders, and the Last Supper. And then many think that her pictorial quilt, 1895 to 1908, was originally commissioned by a group of faculty ladies at Atlanta University. I hope you all learned something. Bye, friends.